First question, red flags from offers. So what red flags to look for in offers? It's a tough question. Like, I think if you're walking into an opportunity and you already have questions and you see red flags jumping into it, like why would you even kind of continue having that conversation? You're not even so sure that it's a good opportunity anyway. So, but obviously like the number one thing is if you ask about revenue and the top closer or bottom closer isn't making the amount of the revenue you said. So let's say they say revenue is at 100K a month, but the top closer is doing 10K and the bottom closer is doing 15 or like 5, whatever. I mean, obviously it's opposite. I mean, realistically, that's the revenue's not going to match, right? That would mean they have to do at least 150K in revenue for that to make sense. That doesn't work, right? It doesn't work that way. So revenue is a huge red flag. Like if that doesn't match the earnings and the earning potential, incorrect. Like that's one red flag, 100%. Number 2, if they're not super transparent, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna look at both these cameras. I have a camera here and a camera here, so I don't wanna like ignore this one and just not look at you guys either. But yeah, if they're not transparent, he has to see stripes, he has to see messages, he has to talk to somebody on their team just to make sure like you can validate what they're saying. If they're not willing to do that, again, it's another red flag. Right, it's poor leadership. You don't wanna do that, don't wanna deal with that. Those are the 2 biggest things that I would tell you. Like, I mean, there's other like minuscule things. Like again, I wouldn't hop on an opportunity. Like you wanna have clarity around your goals. Like how much do you wanna earn? What kind of opportunity you wanna be on? Like those things are all super important before hopping on an opportunity anyway. Like if you're not on an offer where it doesn't align with how much you wanna make, let's say the revenue's at 40K a month, right? You can only really make 4K if you're a closer. Like truthfully, that's all you really can do. And so if that's the case, you know you can only really make 4K, but you want to be making like 12 or 20, like don't even consider going there. Like you're better off like taking your time and finding more quality opportunities than just hopping on any offer just because. It doesn't make any sense, right? So that's the question from Zafir though. Really good question, Zafir. Really good question. Really good question. I'll move on for now. If that doesn't answer your question, Zafir, just let me know. I can continue, I can elaborate more on that. But knowing when it's time to leave an offer, that's a really good question. I've been getting that a lot. A few things, like I think what will happen when you want to leave an opportunity and you're on offer too long, where it feels like you're almost like long overdue and you kind of feel like you're dragging along, like that happens. Like that's normal, but it's just like a bad relationship. Like how much are you willing to tolerate? Like how long are you willing to be on that opportunity or in that relationship to then be like, I ain't gonna do this shit anymore. Like you'll see the red flags, you'll have those resistance, those days where you're like, oh my God, like why the fuck am I even doing this? Like why am I here? And that continues to compound and compound and compound. Like you have this threshold that you're willing to tolerate. Like how much are you willing to tolerate? And if you're not that clear on what that looks like, then you're always gonna have these days where you're up and down and up and down and up and down. You're always gonna battle until you get to a point where like, fuck this, I'm done. And you just like kick the curb and you just wanna leave. Like, you gotta get really clear on like what your threshold is prior to any of this stuff. So then at that point when you start to see like, okay, like I'm not enjoying myself. It's been like 1, 2, 3 weeks of just like shit show. And like your tolerance is just dying and dying. You're almost like dreading hopping on these calls. You know, like 2 months ago, a month ago, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna hop on, I'm gonna sell, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Like when it has that drastic shift, like try to really be clear on like what changed. Was it the leadership? Was it lead flow? Did you stop sharpening your sword? Like really understand those, and don't be afraid to take accountability too, because sometimes it's not exterior factors. Sometimes it's just things that are happening like within you, like things that you're doing. And so that's where I would take a full accountability on like whatever's happening, whatever's going on, and really take a look at those things. But that's what I mean, like have that threshold of what you're willing to tolerate and not tolerate. And then when you hit that point of like, this is just too much, then go, just leave. Like that's the biggest thing. Because there's not like when you see this, like you need to go, right? Like what you're willing to tolerate versus what I'm willing to tolerate are probably 2 totally different things. So get really clear on that for yourself. And then at that point, like, don't be afraid to leave. So I'm not so sure whose question that was, but good question. Give me 2 seconds here. What the process is from going from a setter to a closer. Good good question. I get this a lot. I think as a setter, I got this from Daniel Alts, I'll never forget. It should cost the company money to not move you up. Literally, where like you're so damn good at being an appointment setter that they could literally make you a closer just because they would save money on having the setter and the closer guy because they're paying 15% commission versus just paying you 10, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. If you don't understand, it's fine. But that's the biggest thing. It should literally cost the company money for them not to move you up. And so it should feel like it's inevitable. Like it should literally be inevitable that you're being moved up. Like you can really, really, really do good. Like you can do great and you can be a great setter and be locked in as a setter because you're not making it inevitable. But if you make it very, very clear on what your intentions are, right? Closed mouths do not get fed. If you don't let leadership know like, hey, I want to move up, I want to be a closer, and there's no intention there, they'll make a great setter, and they will stay a great setter. Like 100%. They really, really will. But if you're transparent with them, they'll be transparent with you. They'll let you know where you need to improve, what you need to do. And it's very, very different from offer owner to offer owner. Like I know there's one girl in our community, Catherine Jackson. Like she came in and she was a setter and then she became a setting manager in like 2-3 weeks. Her offer owner had a low threshold of like what's going to take for her to move up. She hit that and she moved up and she's doing well. She's doing great. Right. And then sometimes I know guys who were setters for 6 months, a year, and they got moved up. I know guys who are still setters after a year, 2 years anyway. But sometimes you don't have any interest in moving up. But if your intention is to, one, like let it be known and then make it inevitable. Hunter Seroy came on last week and he also said this too, which I thought was great advice as well, where it's like start doing the things that are required of you to become a closer without being paid for it, without being compensated, right? Whatever that is, or maybe not even, well, you can't really just go fucking just start taking calls. Let me take that back. But if you start doing the things and going that direction regardless, like doing your own call reviews, like sending over calls for feedback and letting it be known that you want to do this, right? Make it inevitable. And there's other things depending on your team, depending on your offer, right? Depending on like if you're triaging or if you're just, outbound dialing, whatever it is. There's things that you can do to let it be known, show up to closing meetings, give your feedback, let your voice be shared, be top of mind for these people in leadership. And at that point, I promise you, if you make it inevitable, it'll happen. It's that simple. And so I don't think there's any company that wants to pay more commissions to someone because it just doesn't make any sense. So if you're that good, they're not going to pay extra commissions for someone who's not as good as you are. So be great, sharpen the sword, do the things that are required of you, and let it be known. Like let leadership know that like you want to move up. Super, super important. Anybody who asks a question afterwards, I'm gonna just put all your other questions at the bottom. It's like Ben Hackett. Someone else asked one above here. I'll get to your questions. I'm just going in order, just so you know. So I'm not ignoring you. But if you guys aren't here, then I'll answer them anyway, actually. So that way you can just have the recording. That's fine. I'll answer it, I promise you. So next question, how to practice and get a sales process down. Okay, that's a good question, really good question. This is very dependent on what role you're in, right? Like, I mean, if you're a setter, right, for example, appointment setters, obviously volume, like the more reps you get in, right, if you're doing more than everybody else, inevitably you're just gonna get better and better and better. I think being an appointment setter, it's not even a matter of like skill. It's a matter of like how much can you endure and how consistently can you wake up in the state of mind that like I'm gonna go fucking call strangers and ask them to give me their time to hop on calls so someone can take their money and be okay with that and be okay with getting ignored, getting a no, right? Someone hanging up with them, someone cursing them out like that. It's in my opinion, I genuinely believe it's very, very unsustainable to be a setter long term. I just think like a lot of people don't have the bandwidth or the ability to be able to do that. And so more reps of just appointment setting and then obviously like going into like a more conversational style where you're getting away from your frameworks, you're getting away from your scripts, super, super important. Because if you call people the same way everybody else calls people, they're gonna treat you like every other setter. And that's where you need to improve on how comfortable it feels to speak to you as a stranger. And as you start to improve on those things, whether it's like, the energy you bring or even like the nerves you have, like if I came in here super, 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 super nervous, you guys would be able to tell by the speed of which I'm speaking at, right? My cadence, you'd be able to tell based off the energy that I'm giving here, right? Like It would just be super, super obvious. It'd be uncomfortable almost. Honestly, you probably wouldn't even stay here to listen to me. And so if you are nervous and you are freaked out, which a lot of cold callers and setters are, right? Because they're like afraid to ask for money for whatever reason, but it's literally your job, but or whatever. Like if you can get used to doing that and then make the other person on the other side feel super, super comfortable in the process of doing that, then I promise you, like that will be like 75% of what your necessity to improve and improve day in and day out, right? Obviously, like sharpening the sword, right? Role plays is super important, and especially as a closer. If you're a closer, I actually got this from Paul Daly. Actually, really good advice. Was watch a really good call in the morning, watch a really bad call in the afternoon, right? If you do that consistently, I'm telling you, like when I first started at Iman's, like that was the number one thing that I did. And honestly, I think like it's kind of like overkill over time, but it definitely helped improve my process a million times, because a lot of people don't like to face the facts and look at those cringy calls where they're like, dude, what the fuck did I just do? And also look at a shitty call. Like, don't just review a great call. That just makes zero sense to me. Like, why would you review a great call? Like, what are you going to critique? Like, oh man, I could have smiled a little bit better on that one question, or I don't know. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. So watch a really good one in the morning, watch a bad one in the afternoon. Do that consistently. Let me see, I think there was a second part to that question. That's what I would do in order to practice and improve. Now, if you wanted to get a sales process down, it depends on where you are in your sales career. Like where you are in your sales journey is super, super important, because if you're early on, I do recommend learning a framework. I don't recommend learning a script, but learning a framework. You have to understand the fundamentals of sales, right? And depending on who you learn from, your fundamentals are going to be very, very different, right? So like a lot of fundamentals from older sales coaches, like, I'm not going to name drop anybody, but like older sales coaches that we can all think of, they're going to teach you you have to take authority, you have to speak a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to blah, 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 blah. All this bullshit. Like, it's just like a bunch of bullshit, genuinely. Like, it is just a bunch of bullshit that you don't really need. If, like, you're newer to sales, and you would never be able to know that, right? If you're newer to sales and you can't tell the difference, I do recommend getting a framework, but don't fall victim to all of these tactics and like understand you're talking to another human. And like this is just a simple example. Like if you were talking to your mother, you saw someone having a conversation with your mother and they're trying to sell her something, and it felt like there was malintent, like how would you feel, right? Like that. Just think about that. Like, or if it was your father, whoever, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, or your grandmother, whatever. It's just like there's gonna be this like there's friction, and it's gonna be like you'd almost be upset. Genuinely, you would probably be upset. And so on the other side, it's like, if you know you're talking to a human, right? It's just like a date. Like you're not going to bring a script to a date. Not at all. Like why would you understand the whole reason why you're on a date? There's two people, right? You and your partner, or that person who you're dating, not even a partner, but whoever, you and the other person. You guys both have your own hidden agendas, right? Like one maybe wants to go home with the other person, one doesn't, or maybe you both do, but you just don't know. It's like a hidden agenda, you don't really know. But you understand the point of the fucking date, right? It's either like we go home together, we get off this date, we never speak again, or like we continue the conversation and maybe we do go home together, right? Like that's how simple it really is. And that is exactly why like sales is like the same exact concept, right? You understand it's somebody who wants to be sold, they want to buy something. And even if they don't want to buy something, they're there for a reason. They are, right? Whatever their hidden agendas are, like you ask the questions to figure out those things, okay? And then so what you're doing is having that conversation with the understanding that like either I'm selling this person, they're never gonna fucking talk to me again, and they're like, fuck off. Or you continue the conversation and you close them later, right? It's the same thing as a date. And so if you don't bring a script there, why would you bring a script to a sales call? That's the number one fundamental thing, like whether you're new, you're advanced, like when you're learning a sales process, take that into consideration. Like, it's that simple. I think fundamentally, if you can understand that everybody makes decisions based on emotion and they compensate logically, like those are the things that you need to understand when jumping into sales calls. Because when I tell you, if you can just remember that, like every decision you make is based on emotion, no matter what it is. Everything from like me picking this cardigan to me deciding to do this fucking live, it was all emotional. And then I compensated logically. Honestly, I'll be quite honest, I didn't want to really hop on here. I was gonna record a video over here. But I was like, fuck it, like I'll just do it. Like, you know, I thought like maybe like my dad would hop in here and be like, yo, dude, nice mustache or something. You know, I don't know. So I was just thinking about all these fucking little things. There you go, just do it. And it became an emotional decision where I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it. And I compensated logically where I was like, maybe some benefit. Maybe some guys will get some value. Maybe like I'll see, you know, fucking Cy hop in here and talk to him and, you know, say what's up, whatever. That's it. Like it's the same exact thing. And so when you understand those things fundamentally, your frameworks and all that stuff kind of help you as a guideline, but then eventually like ditch all that shit and just learn to listen. Like learn to listen and learn to care. That's it. Because if you care about the other person and if you genuinely listen and help them understand their situation better than they understand themselves, at that point, you don't have to act like an authority figure. You don't have to be someone you're not. They will look at you like an authority figure. They will know that you appreciate them. They will know that you care. And they will buy from you because they trust you. We're in this era of like so much mistrust and such a lack of attention. Like no one fucking trusts anybody, bro. Like nobody does. Like it's not the same. It's not, even from 2020 till now, it's not the same. I mean it. It's so different. So, good question. Getting the sales process down. Yeah. Again, like I wish I could tell you it's easy as like don't hop on with the script and just kind of go through it, but it's not. Like I do think you should understand the fundamentals, learn a process, figure that stuff out, get a framework, and then eventually like you'll have that engraved in your brain and understand how it's supposed to flow, what it's supposed to feel like, and then at that point like it's super simple from there. So really good question. This one is from my boy Josh, man. This is such a good question. What are top 1% closers? Oh no, hold on, I'm reading it wrong. What are the number one top closers? No, somebody wrote this wrong. What are the top closers basically doing from the rest to separate themselves? That's essentially what it is. Really good question, Josh. Really good question. It depends if you're talking like top in the world, or if you're talking about like top on opportunities. I firmly believe that like when you really get really good, that you can take less calls, have shorter conversations, and make more money. Like I think that's what the end all be all should look like, because at the end of the day, number one, when you get really good, you start to understand that you need to protect your energy, right? Like you're not just gonna hop on with anyone and everyone. You protect your time. That's super important. Like you're not gonna hop on with like someone from a foreign country or someone you know is just not gonna be a good fit. Maybe you can push them over. Like you're not gonna waste your time. Your time is too valuable for that. You're not gonna do that, right? So that's why you'll cut down your calendar. And the time of your conversations, like realistically, when you get really good at sales, all you're really doing is fucking listening. Like you're just literally listening. And I kid you not, like it should, I know people say 70-30, like prospects speak 70% of the time, you speak 30, but it could be less than that, like 80-20. 90-10 is a little excessive, but even the way that I sell, even the way that I speak just now, like I pause. I wouldn't even say excessively, but it's genuine. Like I don't pause because I want to fucking feel like Elon Musk and be like, let me think on that. Like I pause because I'm intentional with what I'm saying and I'm thinking, but also that just ironically brings down the talk time as well. So you're listening way more than the speaking that you're doing prior, because a lot of closers tend to speak and like push and try to sell in that way. You're taking back the talk time that you have. Super important to remember, right? When you remember that, that's huge. And then from there, after the talk time, you're cutting that down. Also understanding that people assume in the positive. And so you're not pitching for 5, 10, 20 minutes, right? You're not just going to go ahead and just like, this is what you're going to get. This is what it's going to look like. This is what this and all the features and all this other, none of that shit, bro. Like it's literally, I kid you not. There was one opportunity, viral coach, Daniel Isles, maybe he might hop in here. I hope he does. But at its peak, I mean, there was like, I realized that when I was pitching even more than 5 minutes, people would get to that emotional state where they were like, hey, I'm going to buy this thing. They would compensate logically, and I would pitch for 5 minutes thinking that's going to help me, right? But it's not. Because what happens is, as you're explaining all these features and all these things, you're giving them things to think about, things they didn't consider prior, things they didn't hear. And they're like, Well, how does this work? How does that work? And now they're starting to really get out of that emotional buying state and get into a point of logic again and start thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, right? I call it like the TikTok pitch. This is from Baco. Baco told me to trademark that, and I didn't yet, so probably shouldn't have said that. But anyway, TikTok pitch. It's like pitching in 1 or 2 minutes, making it super pointed to the results and how it's going to benefit them. And then at that point, I promise you, man, you make it short where you know they're going to buy. If you know they're going to buy and they're at an emotional buying state, I swear, like, I'm yet to test this, but I'm surely convicted that you could literally be like, blah, 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 blah. That's how it works, man. So like, I mean, I know you don't really care, but I'm pretty sure you're ready to get started at this point. It just seems like that. And they're like, yeah, I'm pretty much ready to go. Like, you could literally do that. And I kid you not, like I'm 99% confident that that would work. Don't try it. I'm not saying to try it, but if you cut down your pitches, I promise you, you'll close more. So that's what I mean by like the top 1% of the guys, they're speaking way less. They're taking less calls, right? They're spending less time on calls. They're making more money in half the time, right? Because they're speaking less. They're asking better questions. They're asking questions that are going to make the prospect fucking ramble. And then at that point, when you pitch, bro, you're just straight to the point. Shoot it in the heart. You know what they need. You know what they want. You close. That's it. So really good question, Josh, my boy. I know you're here. Good to see you, bro. I'll see you at midnight tonight. How to keep yourself up when things aren't going well? Such a good question. I always say who you are on your sales calls or who you are off of your sales calls. And that is very, very, very true. But then what also seems to happen, pretty frequently, what I've noticed is that your sales, your numbers, all of that stuff starts to bleed into your life. And you start to become your numbers. And you start to value yourself based on how much commission you're making. You start to value yourself based on your worthiness is your cash collected, how you're showing up to your call, all these things. But you don't realize, the funny thing is that what's impacting you and causing that and creating that is literally things outside of sales, right? You're probably distracted from, drama in your life. You're probably stressed about finances or XYZ, whatever it is, right? There's something going on that's making you feel that way, right? And then it's causing your numbers to drop. But then now you're looking at your numbers and you're like, fuck, man, I'm a piece of shit because I'm not making 20K like I was making last month. Now I'm making like 12 or 8 or 3 or 0, right? And then you're like, dude, what the hell? I'm not worthy of this. But it's literally like you're just looking in 2 different directions when you just got to look back at one. Like, hey, what's going on? If your sales calls are going down and your closing rate is going down, look outside, see what's going on personally in your life outside of sales, and then go back, make sure that's all clear, have those tough conversations, do the things you need to do, see your sales calls start to improve because you're more present, and then at that point your numbers start to go up as well, right? That's very simply how it works. But the thing to remember is that like a lot of entry-level sales guys really believe that when times are low, you need to be low, and when times are high, you need to be high. So in order to stay high when times are low is knowing that you need to distinguish those 2 things. Like, you cannot look at the worthiness in your life and who you are as your numbers. Those are the things that you cannot do. Because I promise you, like, that will control you for your entire time in sales. Like, I promise you, that will control you forever. You'll start to think that, like, your numbers are you. It's not. Eventually you'll detach from that. But whenever they say like detach from the outcome, detach from the, remove emotion, all that stuff, like that's all it really is. That's what you really mean when you're saying remove emotion. Like, you need to fucking let go of all this bullshit. Like, the numbers will come, like the commission checks will change. Like, just pay attention to the process. I promise you, that's all you need to do and it will change. Distinguishing those 2 things are the biggest thing. Like, understanding that your numbers and you, right, like your energy levels and like how you're supposed to feel about yourself aren't going to be dictated by your numbers. You dictate how you feel. Like, literally what's going on is like, because your numbers are down, you don't think that you're good enough. And then now you're just like, I'm low. That's it. But like you create that. That's literally something that you create, that you believe, and you're choosing to believe. Like, just get rid of that thought process in itself. So like in this case, I think this was from Oscar. Like, I would need to know more context for you specifically, like in order to give you pointed advice, like how to keep yourself up when things aren't going well, like what that really means for you. But that's what I mean. Like, just detach from the numbers and understand those are 2 totally separate things. Because if you start to combine the 2, yes, it's who you are off your sales calls or who you are on your sales calls, that's true. But like, your sales numbers and you are not the same. Like your energy levels and like your number, even like the amount of money in your bank account doesn't really dictate how you should really feel about yourself. Genuinely, it shouldn't. So, but a lot of people tend to do that. Easier said than done, but detach from that. Like it's really just detaching the emotion. That's the biggest thing. Good question, but Oscar, if you want to text me to get more context, like it's something like what it is that you mean specifically, that answered your question. I hope it did, but if there's anything else specific that I missed, because it could be like you're applying for jobs and they're just not answering, like it could be absolutely anything. Just let me know if I missed anything, okay? Good question though. How to find good offers with good earning potential? Very subjective question just because good offer is subjective and good earning potential is subjective to yourself. But a few ways. Like I'm a firm believer that being on no offer is better than being on a shitty offer. Because the absolute worst thing, and I'll compare it to like dating again, right? Imagine like no girlfriend versus a shitty toxic girlfriend. Like life is just gonna be worse. Like you might as well just be single. Like it's okay, man. Like go cuddle with your dog or something. Like you'll be all right. Same thing with these opportunities. Like I'm focused, if I was to go back into like finding opportunities, I'd be more focused on finding good opportunities, quality opportunities. So getting really clear, who do I want to work with? What do I want the leadership to look like? What's the culture going to look like? All these little factors. Again, you will never know what a good opportunity is or looks like if it's not specific to you, right? Because I might think that a good opportunity could be like, I don't know, working for like a dating offer. Like Cole's here. Cole works for a dating offer. Great opportunity, makes great money, and that's a great opportunity, right? But genuinely speaking, like, I mean, like, I don't want to make it confusing, but I personally don't think I would ever close on a dating offer. But like, again, I could think it's great, and then someone else would be like, no, that's absolutely shit. Like, I don't want to close for a dating offer. Why would I do that? Like, hell no. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's fine. Like, that's unique to you. But that's what I mean here. I think this is a fear as well. When you're finding a good offer, a good opportunity, understand what good opportunity looks like to you. Right? Get very, 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 very clear on that because that's the most important. If you can get very clear on those things, like how much earning potential do you need to be making, right? So understand, like, do you want to make 9K a month? Do you want to make 3K a month? Do you want to make 2K a month, right? Because again, it's subjective. It's to you. So find out what that looks like. Then leadership, right? If you haven't been on an opportunity before, fine. Like it's kind of hard to dictate like what good and bad leadership looks like. But maybe like, okay, like what do you like to be led by? You like to be led by somebody who's like, yo, get the fuck up. Let's go. Do you like that? Then sure. Look for that. If you don't, then don't go work for Andy Elliott. I mean, no offense to Andy. I mean, Andy's great. I mean, I don't even think he's really like that, to be honest. But like, don't work for a company that's all like rah, 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 rah. You know what I'm saying? It's just not going to suit you, right? And then third is like culture, because understanding like you're going to be there every single day. Like I say, beyond earning potential, learning and growing is the most important thing. And if you don't feel like it's a culture you can grow in, because you'll probably be able to learn on some, I mean, realistically, you find an opportunity doing 20 to like 100K a month, even though those are like on the lower end of the spectrum here. If you're on an opportunity like that, I'm sure like there's somebody on that team who knows more about sales than you if you're just starting. And then if you are, in the space for a little bit now, you understand like, earning potentials, all this stuff, you understand the process, you've made, 500K in cash collected or more, then you're going to look for opportunities where like culture matters. You're going to look for opportunities where it's like, dude, like I need to make this and it needs to feel like this. And you get very clear on those things, right? I mean, trial and error will bring you there eventually, but also like, also understand like what you want. Like it's not even just the trial and error. Like you have to understand you. And if you don't understand you, then that's another problem in itself. You're probably not going to do good on the sales opportunity anyway, right? Like what resonates with you. Like that's super important. If you just don't know that, then like it's just like having zero values. If you get married to someone and you have zero values, like there will be things that will impact you throughout that marriage or throughout the relationship that you won't even realize until like it actually happens. So you get really, really clear on those things, like your life values, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, what you want. Like those are all things that I'm not saying you need to be picky, but like you need to get clear on that. And like what is acceptable and not acceptable for you. Those are the things that are super important. I'm telling, like that's what I mean when you have like alignment with yourself, like understand that little voice in your head, right? I always talk about, you have a little voice in your head. If you have a bad relationship with that person, that little conscious, not a person, but like, you have a bad relationship with your conscious, I promise you, you're gonna be super confused when you're looking for these things. And the reason why I get these same questions over and over and over again, people are looking for external, factors like what earning potential, this, that, but they're not looking at like, dude, what do you want? Like, I can give you validation and confirm things and say, hey, this is a good opportunity, but generically, like in a generic sense, sure, but it might be good for you and bad for someone else. That's what you get very clear on. Like, it's very, very subjective. So Zafir, really good question. Finding a good offer, get clear on those things. But like, I don't know if you're asking this in terms of like what to look for, or because you also said good offers with good earning potential. So that, to me, it just kind of means that like, how, like, where do I look? And so I'll tell you, like, if you're clear on those things, focus on quality, meaning like look for companies and leaders that represent what you want. Take the time to do that. Like, really, really make an effort through outreach. Like, send a loom like a unlisted YouTube video that speaks to them, that resonates with them, that's gonna grab their attention. Super, super important. Super, super important, because I promise you, like, they probably have on average like 5 or 10 people reaching out to them on a daily basis. Like, hey man, can I close for you? Hey man, can I set for you? Like, stand out. Like, you gotta be able to stand out. And so if you're spending the time looking for these 5, 10 people per day, I promise you, like, after a week, you'll find 1 or 2 people who respond to you. And then by like a week or so later, like, you will get an interview. Like, if you prove yourself to, because again, it's all about presentation, how you present yourself to you at the end of the day. Like, if you stand out, like Jalen's here. Jalen worked with a dude who had 3 million followers, bro, with no experience. But he sent a bunch of looms, a bunch of messages, a bunch of teams. But he knew he wanted to find somebody in the fitness niche. He knew he wanted to work with someone in that space. And he sent all these looms and videos, and it stood out. It resonated with the offer owner. And at that point, dude, I mean, come on. Like, with no experience and you find an opportunity like that, it's just focus on quality. I've been telling you, like, if you start doing the quantity stuff and start giving like shit effort, you're gonna get shit responses. They'll probably even tell you, like, dude, try harder, man. Like, better luck next time, bro. So, and that's the thing. Like, give an effort that if it was you on the other side, you'd open that message, right? Whatever that looks like. And I'm telling you, like, I promise you, you'll start to have more respect for your time, because you do like 10 of those and you put a lot of effort into it. And you're like, yo, what the fuck? I can't keep just sending these out. You realize that you weren't really giving like maximum effort initially. And then you'll start really caring and being like really careful with what you're doing and careful with what you're saying. And then by like number 15 or 20, you'll kind of get it down packed, and then you'll be, all right, cool, this is great. That's like one way I would do it. Another way is like obviously communities. Like, I mean, that's probably the best way I've seen it. Like, I think this year alone, with like even things that I've purchased have been through communities. Like, I bought like a recommendation through a community, like whether it was my own community or a community that I was a part of when I was closing earlier this year. Like, that's all stuff that I would recommend, like 100%, because you'll find great opportunities through there. And lastly, like, I think not even, like, when I say communities, I mean, like, they'll post jobs in there, but also like getting to build relationships and know people on, or inside the community, I'm sorry, as well, because then when you start to build goodwill and friendships and people start to like you and care about you, then they're like, yo, dude, I have a closing opportunity. You want to come work with me? Da, 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 da. And that's how it happens. Like, that's how I met Jalen. That's how Jalen ended up working with me. Maddie, right? Maddie came with me with Rival Coach. Like, it's the same kind of thing where I was like, I'll look out for you guys, like, for sure. And it becomes what it is now, right? So, Moises sell me that hat. But at the end, I will, if you stay. Who else next? 3 most important signs to look for when deciding to leave an offer. I think I kind of mentioned this earlier. Sophia, yeah, I think I answered this earlier. I'll send you the recording if you didn't. I just want to answer it if anyone's been here. I'll answer the same one. Yeah, I'm telling you, bro. I got 3 more from people who asked prior, and then I'm going to go back down the list from the rest of you guys. Should you have another offer lined up before leaving your offer? Oh, such a good question. So, no offer is better than having a bad offer. So if you're on a bad offer, then I would say no. Like, if you're on a bad opportunity, like, just leave. Protect your mental energy. Like, I know guys personally who left $20,000 a month opportunities because of toxic leadership. Like, it's not worth it, dude. I'm telling you, like, you might think, I swear to you guys, all these, you know how, like, you'll go to, like, parties and they'll ask, like, that crazy question, like, yo, if I give you $100,000, man, like, would you, like, all these crazy, like, dude, trust me when I tell you, like, it's It's not as easy as you think. When you wake up and you literally feel like you would rather be stapled to the bed and not get up, like that stuff is fucking real. And then like when you have that and you're dragging through life and people see that and you feel this energy, and it just like feels like shit, and you're almost like ready to throw up when you're hopping on these calls, and you're like, dude, like, and you're just constantly talking negatively about the opportunity. You're like, dude, like this fucking place fucking sucks. Oh my God, I can't see it. And you know that you won't even be there 2 months or a month longer. Like you might as well cut your ties. It's like, what the fuck else are you gonna wait for? Like what else are you what are you waiting for? Like there's nothing else. So if you're on a bad one, just go. But if you're on a good opportunity, I think it just depends on circumstances, right? Because if you know you're good and now you're just looking to level up, like, yeah, like don't just leave. Unless, again, like, granted, everybody's financial situation is different. If you're sitting on some money and you have that, like 100%, like sure, like don't be afraid to go. Like take your time, live the luxury, like do your thing. You have the finances, you have the runway. Like that's the whole reason it's there for. Like don't be afraid, just go. Now, if you are in a situation where like it's not really bad, it's not really good, but you're kind of just looking and going around, the only reason why I'd say it's not a necessity is because, I mean, you're just in this limbo. I just think that's like there's a lack of clarity on like why you want to be there or why you want to leave, and like you're just, again, unsure on your own values of like what you're valuing from the opportunity and what you're not valuing, what you are valuing. I'm sorry. That's super important, but I don't think it's a bare necessity. I don't think there's any situation where I'd say it's a necessity to have, but I definitely think it's a good thing. Like I definitely think if you are going from, you know, an opportunity where you're making 6 to 8K a month, and you have another opportunity where you can make 12 to 15, like, I mean, if it comes your way or you look for it, like, I mean, obviously it just means that like you wanted to leave anyway. Right, so I don't think there's an instance that I can think of personally where like you need to have an opportunity lined up. I think a lot of people look at it like 9 to 5s, where like don't leave your 9 to 5 until you have another 9 to 5 lined up, you know, so you can protect this, protect that. Like it's all very circumstantial. Like it's like if you have runway, like dude, I don't know what else you're waiting for. Like if you're just like, oh, I feel bad for this person, like dude, like who cares? Like they're not gonna give a fuck about you in like a week. They're gonna be like, yo, you remember that guy Justin? They're like, who? Like, yo, he worked here for 2 years. You're like, oh no, I don't know who that guy is. But they're not gonna remember. So it's like you might as well just like get the fuck out of there. Like it's like it's like, and if you present it the right way, and you do it the right way, where you lead with integrity, humility, and even if you're super upfront and honest with them, and if you have no intention of going back either, that's one thing where I'd say like, dude, just go. Like nothing lined up, nothing you need. But if you feel like, oh, I've loved these guys. Like when I left Gym Launch, like I had a great relationship with them, and I no, full transparency, I left the same day to go to Iman's. I left the same day to go to Iman's, and they still were like, hey, like it's cool. Like, dude, I understand if you have an opportunity to make way more money, like we're happy for you. So it's like, dude, they're not gonna kill you for doing it. I don't think you need an offer lined up, but it would be good to have it for sure. How to handle, I need to think about an objection. Good question. I'll start working my way up to the other questions you guys asked as well, so that way you have it. I'll be honest, guys, I did not pay attention to this camera at all up here this entire time, unfortunately. So that sucks. So I'll only be able to use this recording. Give me 1 second. So yeah, did you ask the first question? You did. Yeah, okay. So, all right, I'll answer yours after. I have 2 more. So think about it and another one, and then I'll answer yours. I need to think about it. So number 1, if you did a good enough job during discovery, like you should literally have no objection at the end. Like you should be able to close it no problem. Genuinely, like it should feel seamless, where it's just like in the bag. Like they're like, dude, how can I pay? Or the worst, they'll say like, can I break it down in payments? Like please, like I want to do this, I just want to break it down. And that's the worst that I've seen. But if they're coming in saying I need to think about it, biggest thing to understand, number 1, think about it is not real. Like that is just a reaction. It's actually a nice way to ask for permission to leave a call. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go think on it. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna think on this. And it's like, okay, like I get it, like totally understand that. And you could go down the route of like trying to push and pull out information and pry, and like that's the worst thing you can do, guys. If anybody's ever told you like, no, you need to fucking crush their soul and get them to say like this is bullshit, like da, da, da. Like that is very true. Like it is bullshit, and I would tell you that 100%. It is bullshit. But the whole thing is understanding that think about it is a reaction. It's just a reaction. They're just reacting and they're afraid and they're like, fuck, I need to think this over because it's just like a big commitment, and especially if the call throughout the entire time was great, felt good. Like, dude, if you fucked up during discovery and they're saying I need to think about it, it's just because you fucked up during discovery. Like, that's it. And like, that means like genuinely the only way you can really save this is if you literally did a better discovery. And so you kind of have to ask more questions to get to that point. They don't feel like you understand them enough, which is why they're like, instead of telling you like, no, man, because everybody spent so much time with you, right? So they feel like they kind of know you. They're like obligated to like finish this conversation with you. It's like, oh yeah, like, let me just finish this with him and like, let me tell him I need to think about it. I'll never speak to him again, right? But if it's like, you ask a girl on a date and she's like, can I think it over? Like, dude, what the fuck? Like, it also just shows me like, if somebody even has a chance to say something, like one, like a lot of closers do this, where like, they'll just ask questions to ask questions. They'll follow a framework, they'll follow a script, they'll follow a jury minor. And then they'll get to the end and they're going to be like, all right, I'm just going to pitch here because I have no more questions. And then at that point, they just think they're going to get a sale. Like, this is not how this shit works. Like, dude, it's just, if it was that simple, dude, like everybody would be great at sales and everybody would make 10K, 20K a month. It's really not that fucking simple. It's really not. I mean, the concept of how you should be selling is simple, yes, but like the process itself and like what you have to ask and what you get somebody to feel is very different. And so them saying they need to think about it, yes, is bullshit. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, don't let them sell you on that and let them think that they can just run away and be like, yeah, I need to think it over. Like, that's not at all true, okay? And so what I would do is if someone says they need to think about it, one, I would just realize, okay, cool. Like, there's just a little bit of a breakage in trust here, and they're not even being honest with me. And so I would just attack, number one, like, okay, I totally understand where you're coming from, Brian. I mean, I'd take a long pause and be like, is it that you really need to think this over? And I promise you, even if you just take the long pause in itself, like if you just pause alone, they'll feel that discomfort because they know they're lying. They know they're lying. And you're just going to be like, is it that you just need to think it over? And I usually people will be like, oh, well, it's not that I need to think about it. Because like they'll start like laughing because they think any average closer is like, oh yeah, no, I get it, man. Like, no, I'll put my hands up. Like, hey, think it over, man. Please, whatever you need. And then they'll like get all like salesy and like jump to the other side of the table because we've been on that same side of the table this entire time. You've told me everything. You told me about your divorce, told me all these little things, and now you're gonna lie to me right at the end. Tell me you need to think it over. Absolutely not. Like, that's bullshit. Okay, you understand that. They understand that, and they both. You both know. It's just like it's the elephant in the room. And so don't try to like go around it, dance around it. Like, I'm gonna attack it and just be like, okay, pause at least like 5 seconds. You can count. It's uncomfortable. It's almost more uncomfortable than like when you're asking for the close and you pause that price, but you pause and be like, is it that you really need to think about it? And if you say it that way, where it's like lighthearted, they'll be like, like, yeah, and they'll be all fishy and finicky. And again, call it out for what it is. I'm just very transparent. Like, Brian, I'm sensing some discomfort, right? If you want to say it like in the framework, I'm sensing some discomfort. Or you can be like, hey, Brian, like, this feels really uncomfortable, man. Like, we've had a great conversation. I think I understand where you're at. Is there something that I'm missing here? Like, what don't I see here? Because it just doesn't feel like the same conversation we were having before. And now they're going to start to see, it's almost like, because what happens is this is what everybody does. They get tactical, they get framework based, and they follow these processes, and they follow this like, oh, like, do you believe we can, like, do you really believe that we can help you here, or whatever. There's like, I've heard so many frameworks on these coaching calls, but it's like, I promise you, like, all you're doing is dancing around like what you really need to ask. And so like, it's like, at that point, if you just address it, it literally will feel to them as if you're on the other side and you can see behind their eyes. And they're like, dude, like, this guy's like reading my mind. How does he know? Because everybody else will get tactical. And then what happens is resistance will go down because you don't feel like everyone else. And when you don't feel like everyone else and you're not saying what everyone else says, now they're like, oh shit, okay, like, this is different. Like, I can actually be comfortable with this guy. He's not trying to sell me. He's still detached. He's just trying to understand me. And then they're going to be like, well, yeah, man, you know, like, it's a lot more, because usually, I kid you not, 8 times out of 10, it's just more money than what they expected. And then it just goes into another different objection where it's like, well, what are you comparing it to? Like, you're talking to other companies, all this other stuff. I kid you not, guys, like 8 times out of 10, it's just gonna be, it's more than what they expected. And then at that point, like, it's just attacking, is it fear? Is it logistics? Like, they just need to break it down, like all those things. But if you just do that, I promise you guys, like, you probably won't even make it past the pause. Like, if you can learn to sit in silence for like 5-10 seconds, or like, because it's almost as if you're not saying anything, it's saying so much. The silence is so loud where they're like, this guy knows I'm bullshitting, he knows I'm bullshitting. It's almost like when you like, think about trying to lie to the police, how nervous you would feel. And if the cop's like, and then you're like, all right, man, look, fuck, bro. Like, I took the fucking Doritos. Like, you're gonna pull it out your pants or say, yeah, I'm telling you, it's uncomfortable. Even just sitting here, I promise you, you're probably like, oh fuck, like, this is kind of uncomfortable. I promise you. That's simple. I'll make a framework on this. I'm creating some different curriculum this weekend, and I'll put this together. But like, again, that's not gonna. It doesn't stop there. Of course, there's way more. But I'd be here till like midnight, just going over all these other processes. What I would say from there, but. I can't see if anybody's asking any other questions. I'm going to just start from the top and work my way down. So if anybody's saying anything else, I can't see it. I'm sorry. Last question here before I go over to the list here. So what type of research do you do before getting into the online sales space? Good question. Good question. That's like pre-beginner question. That's like a really deep question. Guys, I swear I'm not acting. I'm really thinking here. One, I wish there was a video like debunking what sales is, because if you're looking into the remote spaces, either you're looking because you want like this like locational freedom and you want to be free. But I also think people think that sales is like, oh, I'm good at talking, so like I'm gonna do sales. I'm gonna just talk to people all day. Yeah. But that's not really what sales is. And so like, I would look, this is actually such a good question, because that just gives me ideas of like what I could be creating for what you should be watching and seeing, and like videos that you should see and watch, like debunking the myths of sales. Like, that's, I wish there was a video like that you just watch and be like, oh, like this isn't true, this isn't true, this isn't true. I would really try to find some type of videos or content. I don't want to be biased and say like, look at shit like that, like we're posting or I'm posting, because that's just like so easy to say. But like, if that's not there, because the thing that happens is like people will get bad coaching early on and then come to me and be like, dude, I've learned the wrong way, help me. That really got me thinking. I would look up, if I was just getting in the remote sales space, what a discovery call is. I would look up some of like the mainstream sales books, kind of like How to Win Friends and Influence People. Well, I'm saying mainstream in my opinion. Geez, I don't even know if these are mainstream. But like, I would look up the psychology of sales. I'd look up like almost like psychology. Like the biggest thing that I did before I got into like sales, like before even gym launch, I read a book called Neuroselling, and that's what kind of built the foundation of how I sell and the way I think about sales. It's very, very different. And just understand how the brain works, and I kind of like reverse engineer this whole entire process of like human decision making and all that other shit. That's kind of what I did. And that's what I would recommend, is like learning like the psychology of the brain and the decision-making processes. Those are all super, super important prior to jumping in, because that's what I think like the foundation fundamentals of sales really, really, really applies and stems from, is just that. And if you can learn that way and not from like, hey, this framework's gonna change your fucking life, dude, like watch this shit. Like I'm telling you right now, like this is sales. Like absolutely not, you know? So, yeah, that was a really good question. Holy cow, it really got me thinking. All right, let's start from the top. Let me see. Okay, let me just. Yeah. I always see your name. Yeah, I always see you, bro. I always feel like I get your name wrong. All right, I'm gonna start from the top, and then work my way down, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, cool. All right, let's do it. Going back up. Hopefully this hasn't been boring. I haven't gone live since like middle school. This feels weird. Sometimes I hop on a call and I don't have mental clarity. Like my mind feels distorted, which interferes with my effective thought process. Ooh, do you know the reason and how to avoid that? Oh my God, bro. Really good question. So this applies to what I said earlier about like what's going on in your personal life starts to bleed into your sales life, your career, your job. And so I promise you, like if you don't have that mental clarity, there's obviously something on your mind. There's something in your head that you're like, fuck, dude, I just can't stop thinking about this thing. Like, what the fuck's going on? And you hop on the call and be like, hey, what's up, Brian? How you doing, man? And you're still like in the back of your head, like, dude, I gotta get rid of this debt, bro. And it's like, yeah, what's going on, man? And you're just like, you're listening, but like you're like zoned out at the same time. You're just kind of like, yeah. And I always know someone doesn't listen when they're like, yeah. But you're not listening, bro. It's like, that shit is so stupid. Just sit there in silence, bro. Okay? It's gonna hit way better. Anyway, so you're thinking about things that are outside of what's in front of you. If you're just present, bro, like, I want you to think, like, let's get out of sales for a second. If you think about, like, if you're an athlete, I don't know, fucking singer, if you're something like this, you're just talking to 18 people. What are you thinking about when you're on these calls? What are you thinking about when you're on stage? What are you thinking about when you're about to score that fucking goal or score a touchdown? Think about it for like 5 seconds. I feel like Dora the Explorer. What is it? Like, what do you think? You don't think of anything. Like, you're not thinking of anything. You're in that flow state. There's nothing in your brain. You're not thinking about anything. So, like, if you have the time and clarity to think about something else, then you're not present. Like, you're not in a flow state. And so I promise you, like, there's little bits of baggage, things that are grabbing your attention outside of your sales calls that are crushing your sales performance. And that's what you have to look at. It's like, what are those things? And then so now when you're hopping on these calls and you're just not, again, like, there's probably something in front of you, there's a distraction, there's something. But I promise you, if you just look past all that, like, what could it be? Like, it's probably right in front of your face. Like, you're just not addressing it. And so, like, realistically, if I thought about, like, my football games when I was younger in high school, if I thought about, like, some sales calls where I was distracted, I was probably thinking about money, a relationship, or like drama, like toxic relationships, toxic friendships, toxic family, whatever. Like, it could be absolutely anything. And you're thinking about maybe like a dumb decision you made. Maybe you're thinking about the time in first grade where you fucking threw up in front of the whole entire class. Like, who knows? But like, you're just thinking about things that are not right in front of you. Just be present. I'm telling you, like, you just need to get every single thought out of your head. And how you do that, right, how to avoid it, how to get those things out of your head, it's addressing these things. Like, why the fuck are you thinking about something about from first grade? Like, is it that you are trying to distract yourself because you're nervous on this call, and then it's bringing you back to a time when you were super nervous when you were a kid again, and those two things collide, right? You're kind of just confused. That could be one thing. Is it that you just had an argument with your freaking mom, and then like now you're like, dude, what the hell? She's gonna kick me out, and now I'm hopping on a sales call? Like, of course you're not gonna be present. But the times where you are present, all you need, it's not about how to avoid it, it's just how to like remove it, is care. Because if you care about a conversation, if you care about a result, if you care about something, you're gonna drop everything and you're gonna listen. You're gonna pay attention, right? You just have to care more. I promise you, that's the most, like, past money, past everything. Like, I genuinely care about you guys getting better, which is why, like, I will do a call at midnight, which is why I'll do this for like an hour and a half, which is why, I don't fucking know, like, I'll call you at 2 a.m. and be like, yo, you need help with some sales stuff? Cool, let's do it, like, whatever. Like, it's that simple. Like, I'm telling you, man, just care, and I promise you to go away. Good question. I've never seen JJ without caffeine. Thanks, Parsa. What would be the best way to transition from setter to setter manager? Ben, good question. Hunter Seroy actually did say this, and so this would apply to you. Start doing the things that are required of a setting manager without being paid for it. Make it inevitable. right? And it should almost cost the company money for them not to move you up. So what happens though, I mean, realistically, I don't think a setter manager and a setter can coexist. I don't think a closer and a closing manager or a sales manager can coexist either, because it's two totally opposite roles. Like in its most deepest infancy, like as a closer, phone on do not disturb, nobody talk to me, leave me alone. Setter, nobody talk to me, leave me alone. I'm gonna do my own calls, hunt for my shit, do my own shit. That's it, right? As a setter manager or a sales manager, dude, you need to be available for everybody. You need to be able to talk to everybody. You need to create heroes. You're not the hero anymore, you're creating heroes. And so if you can do that, build out processes, build out all these things for the team, start training people, whatever it is, at that point, dude, you're literally just doing it without being paid for it. Like there's like, dude, why would we not just throw him in there? He's doing it anyway. And so at that point, it just makes it inevitable. That's really good about it. It's just, if you make it inevitable, I promise you, like it's that simple. And so like whatever that means to you, like you could literally write that out. Well, what would make this inevitable? Well, if I did this, if I did this, if I did that, like you could literally write that out. It's not like rocket science. You could just figure out like, what does your team need? What's lacking? And where do I need to fill in these gaps? Do it well. Because if you don't know how to do it, then obviously get some advice on those things first, figure out how to do those things, and then implement. And I promise you, like, there's no reason why you wouldn't be there. Like it'd be impossible. Good question. JJ, I have a huge interview for a big drop shipping guru as a setter. Most important thing to stand out from the rest. Okay, Marcelo, good question. 1, background and presentation. Like you don't need something super extra, something super extravagant. But like, for example, if I was to be doing like an interview here, either I'd be pressed against the wall and just have only the wall showing. Or I mean, if it was like, dude, if you had a nice background, like of course, then like, yeah, flex your background, of course. But like, if not, like press it against the wall, press it against the window, have a nice background where like they can see like the fucking forest behind you or something, or, you know, see a blank wall, that's fine. Like either have something fancy or have nothing, like no in between. Like don't have it, like don't be crappy. Also, don't hop on your phone. Don't do that. It's a very bad impression. I'm sorry, from the beginning. These lives are timed. I only have a minute left. Okay, I didn't know that. And then so, yeah, you have the presentation, the background, what you're wearing is important. Understand their culture. If you do some research on their culture, who they are, what they represent. Like again, Eddie Mons, like if you don't look the part, if you're not a culture fit, you don't feel like the part, then they're like, dude, what the hell? Like we're not even gonna consider this, dude. Culture's super important. Understand if that's important there and what their culture looks like. Very, very, very important. And then after that, dude, like don't sound like everybody else. If everybody's giving these long-winded, like I'm passionate about sales, you know, dude, I do 20 push-ups every morning and I say sales every time I do a push-up. Like I love sales and I'm so passionate about all this, which is what all these guys really do and say. And it just sounds like crap. They're trying to sell themselves by overcompensating. But if you say less, but it's to the point, it's strong and it sounds good. Like Marcel, I don't know what you're doing or what your role is, but let me know like your experience, your background. I'll create a voice message for you. Like if they ask you like tell me about yourself, like don't give them this 1 minute spiel. Give them like a 10-20 second spiel that hits straight to the point, explains who you are, explains why you're valuable, and that's it. Because there's value in being able to explain that in a short amount of time, like the other guys couldn't. They'll stand out that way as well. Other than that, bro, if you do those things, I don't think you should struggle. You should be fine. I gotta rush through this. 30 seconds. Who is this guy? Brandon, who? Love you, bro. Half a shot of vodka between each call. Sometimes when I do pauses for like 10 seconds, it feels weird. I don't know if I'm tripping, but what do you think of longer pauses? If it feels weird, you're just not that comfortable in silence yet, just keep doing it more. If you guys want to continue these questions and you have more questions, you want to get questions answered, we have a midnight call tonight. Just join the community in the bio, the free one if you want to as well. I'll let you in. Done.
Woo!
That was chill. That was chill.
You liked it?
Yeah, it was cool.